Good afternoon, everybody. It is the third round of the 2025 British GT Championship. The home of British motor racing, the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit plays host to our third race of the season. But more than that, it's the blue ribboned event, the Silverstone 500, the longest and arguably most prestigious race of the season, the one they all want to win, the one that always keeps us guessing throughout the 3-hour encounter. Let's hope that 2025's edition of this great race is no different. We've got a big grid of cars across both GT3 and GT4 set to do battle tomorrow afternoon. Before that, though, there is the small matter of deciding the starting order. 4 qualifying sessions this afternoon will do just that. Those of you new to the British GT Championship, don't worry, we'll talk you through the format a little bit later on. It's myself, Andy McEwen, and James Baldwin here in the commentary box to talk you through the action. James, qualifying incoming, 3-hour race tomorrow, but qualifying no less important.
Yeah, firstly, great to be back. Thanks for having me at Silverstone. You know, the best round of the British GT Championship. I think the Silverstone 500 is mega every single year. Although it's such a long race, so you could say it's the least important qualifying session of the year. Of course, it's very good if you qualify near the front, stay out of trouble, hopefully have a clean race and finish near the front.
And there are headlines to be grabbed as well. If you do start on pole position, then you're the team that everyone's talking about overnight. Down amongst the teams in the pit lane, as always, is the third member of our team, Bryn Lucas. Bryn, how are you feeling ahead of qualifying this afternoon?
Do you know what, Andy? I'm very, very happy about this because as a huge Ferrari fan, I'm delighted to say we have not one, not two, but 3 Ferraris in this round. Hopefully all 3 will make it out on track. If you remember last year, there was a Ferrari, but it didn't get out on track. And in fact, we haven't had a Ferrari in a race in British GT since 2020. So they're like buses, aren't they? 3 come along all at once, but it's great to see it. Around 10% of the grid, in fact, is made up of Ferrari this time, so it's absolutely amazing. Further down there, if you cast your eyes into the background, you can see a Collard car, and that is Rob Collard has returned to the series, so it's great to see him back. We have no Sandy Mitchell, but Patrick Caggiula is in the car next to Alex Martin, so that's going to be exciting to see. And did you know, 19 race wins for Johnny Adam, but he has never won the Silverstone 500 in its current format. How is that a thing? Will it change this weekend? Well, we'll find out a little more as the weekend goes on. I wouldn't bet against him, though. What about you?
No, I tend to agree with you, Bryn, to be honest. I mean, James, this is the great thing about the entry this weekend. We really don't know who the favourites are going to be. And what a magnificent circuit, James, they've got to do battle on.
The home of British motorsport, and it's a great track, you know, so a proper combo of low speed, medium speed, high speed, super smooth, super flat, and in a GT3 car, you really feel the downforce working around here. So physically, you could say it's one of the toughest on the calendar, Silverstone.
And that's because of that high average speed, not many really low speed corners, but there are a handful. The club chicane at turns 8 and 9, that's always a hot spot for overtaking. Village and the loop turns 13 and 14, always action there. And then you've got that long run down the Wellington straight into Brooklands. There are plenty of places you can start a move, but because there's so much change of direction around the lap, James, it's hard sometimes to get the move completed.
It is, and with Maggots-Beckett's, for example, dirty air is quite prominent with all the downforce in these GT cars, which makes overtaking a bit more difficult, means you kill your tyres a bit easier. So it's hard to overtake around here, but to drive a mega circuit.
And that is an opportunity now that the drivers have to head out onto the circuit for our first of 4 qualifying sessions, 2 GT3 qualifying sessions, 2 GT4 qualifying sessions. Each car, if you're new to the championship, is shared by 2 drivers, largely a pro and an AM driver, certainly within the GT3 ranks. So we've got one driver who will perhaps be a factory-back driver or a professional driver for whom this is their career, and they're the best in the business at extracting performance from a GT racing car. And then the drivers in the cars now, the AM drivers, most of these have a day job that they go and do during the week, and that then allows them to come out and enjoy their favourite hobby in the weekends. Lots of these AM drivers, though, themselves supremely talented. Morgan Tilbrook, one of those, former race winner in the championship in the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, is going to be the first one to fire off Luffield Corner, cross the timing line and begin a flying lap. At the end of the 2 GT3 sessions, it's the combined lap times of both drivers in each car that will set the grid. So, James, this session will not finalise anything, but the AM drivers, because there's a bit more disparity in pace between the AMs than there is the pros, this session can be pretty decisive, can't it, when all is said and done?
Yeah, and we tend to find that, you know, the overall pole sitter is usually down to the fact that the AM's done such a good job in the first session. That makes the difference. There's bigger lap time gaps between these drivers than there are the pros. Keeping an eye on the weather, which you can never be too sure in the UK. It said all week it's going to rain today in qualifying, and now it's dry, and there's no rain forecast until tomorrow. So it's going to be a dry quali, but tomorrow looks like it's going to be a fully wet, dry race, which should make it really, really interesting.
Indeed so, and will make the race all the more predictable. The dry, cool and overcast conditions today, though, should yield some pretty quick lap times, particularly once the pro drivers get into the car. The qualifying lap record in GT3, a 156.602, set by Sandy Mitchell, who's not racing this weekend in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. In the second GT3 session, we may well see drivers getting pretty close to those times. Morgan Tilbrook, though, pushing on. Now, the lap is split into 4 sectors, 4 sections of the track. A purple sector, i.e. a purple line next to a driver's name on that timing tower to the left of shot, means fastest of anybody. So Tilbrook fastest in the first sector. Giacomo Petrobelli in the number 7 Blackthorn Aston Martin is fastest in the second sector. Sector 3 ends partway down the Wellington Straight, and then Sector 4 takes you through the final couple of corners, Brooklands, Luffield and Woodcote to the line. And on this opening lap, it looks as though Tilbrook and Petrobelli, the first 2 cars in the queue appropriately, James, are setting the pace.
Absolutely. One thing that's really tricky around Silverstone is track limits. So turn 1, turn 7, turn 10, because there's not immediate gravel, there's quite a lot of runoff. So you feel inclined to carry a little bit more apex speed, but you can then wash out wide, and then instantly in qualifying, if you get a track limit, lap deleted. So you really need to sort of build up to it, because yes, you want to be fast, but you also want to be legal at the same time.
Well, Petrobelli and Tilbrook hopefully both stayed within track limits. They were trading sector times throughout the lap. It was Petrobelli in the Aston Martin fastest by the end of it, though, 58.713. Track limits car 3 at Copse Corner. So a lap time already being disallowed for the number 3 machine of Mike Price. That's the Optimum Motorsport, the other Optimum Motorsport McLaren. So to James's point, track limits can be a little bit of an issue. There are some drivers, James, who are very keen to get out on track. A few others who bided their time, perhaps looking for some clean track. Kevin Say is one of them, the number 18 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes that he shares with pro driver Maximilian Gertz, fastest of anybody in the first 2 sectors and using all of the road out of the loop.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think with the track limits topic, because the circuit's flat, you can't see past the corner because it's sort of on your eye line, so it makes staying within the track limits even more difficult. So yeah, some of the drivers getting out there and pushing early, some of them waiting until later. I think, as you said, having that clear track, having no dirty air, and just having that freedom to prep your tyres exactly how you want to, so you have, well, hopefully get them in the window so you have optimal grip on your quali laps. Lap 1, lap 2, maybe lap 3 should be the peak of the tyre, and then after that it will start to drop away in grip. So, yeah, we should see some quick times off the bat here. 58.7 for Petrobelli. And a
59.0 for Kevin Say. So it wasn't quite the fastest lap of the session. He still holds the fastest first sector of anybody, but the rest of the lap, he wasn't quite as quick as the Aston Martin. So it's Aston Martin, Mercedes, McLaren, your top 3. Fourth quickest at the moment is the Paradigm Competition BMW. Darren Leung, former champion in the British GT Championship just a couple of years ago, is 4th. And into 5th position now goes the number 42 2Cs Motorsport car of Charles Dawson. Petrobelli coming through now to complete his 2nd lap of the session. Doesn't at the moment look as though he's going quite as quickly, certainly in the second half of the lap, as he was last time. It is of an improvement, 58.709, a fractional improvement, found about 100th of a second, I think, on his previous best. But James, that's another interesting point. It's a long lap. You ask a lot of these Pirelli tyres on a hot qualifying lap. How many fast laps do you think they have before the tyres are past their best?
As I said, 2 or 3, but that's very consistent from Petrobelli. Literally 2 laps in a row within 0.004 of each other. So very interesting. Maybe he's found that peak and he's just hit the peak, and now it's gonna fall away from here. But he's got a nice gap there, 3.5 tenths, which at this level is a big gap. And yeah, the Aston Martin looking strong.
Indeed. So down towards Stowe Corner he heads once again. And the Aston Martin, front-engined Aston Martin, another front-engine car here, the BMW heading out onto the Hanger Straight. This is the number 19.1 machine of Darren Leung, and his best effort at the moment within a second of Petrobelli, 159.680. Sector 1 is at the end of this Hanger Straight, and he is still improving. That's a personal best in Sector 1 for Darren Leung. Such an impressive driver, Darren. It's hard to believe, really, that he only started racing about 3 or 4 years ago in Ginetta one-make racing, and now here he is, not only a champion of British GT, but doing great things in international GT racing as well.
without doubt, one of the strongest AM drivers on the grid, one of the strongest bronze-rated drivers. And I think, given his background, he's extremely analytical, having done a few test days with him and stuff, just on a different level when it comes to looking through the data, self-criticising his driving, but also finding time in the setup in the car. He knows the BMW very, very well. And it's a strong start here. He's only, well, he's P4, but he's 9/10 off P1, so maybe the Aston as a car looking very strong, but I see a lot of track limits popping up, especially at turn 1, Cops, 1 at turn 10, which is club. So, yeah, track limits catching a few people out. Yeah,
97 is one of those. Car number 3, another. They're not, in fairness, cars that are troubling the very top of the times for now. This is a car that is, towards the top half at least, it's 6th quickest at the moment for Alex Martin, the number 78 Lamborghini, and this car is still going quite quickly. Personal bests in both of the first 2 sectors for Martin. Needs to find 1.2 seconds if he's going to set the fastest time of the session. That might be a little bit of an ask, but Alex Martin in the Barwell Lamborghini is looking set to improve at least upon 6th position. Another 100th of a second would take him ahead of double champion, reigning champion, Rob Collard. Except that's all changed because Simon Orange puts his McLaren into 4th position. What can Martin do? He goes 4th. Darren Lunga just taken that as well, so everyone wants to be 4th at the moment, but it's Lamborghini into 4th place at the moment. Interestingly, this car at the moment quicker than this one, the returning Rob Collard, who had to miss the opening round of the championship, but Rob, who clinched his very first British GT title right here in this very race when it was the final round of the COVID-affected 2020 season. He is pretty strong around here at Silverstone. Interestingly, former British touring car racer Rob Collard never won a touring car race here at Silverstone, but did manage to clinch that championship in the British GTs a few years ago. He goes through, doesn't improve in the end, and stays in 6th place.
The track looks slower. Everyone's, apart from Petrobelli, everyone's in the 59s, and I think having tested here a couple of months ago, that on new tyres with, you know, a quali spec of car, that isn't that quick. So I don't think the pros are going to be troubling that 56.6 that Sandy Mitchell did last year at the qualifying lap record. I think that's safe, unless something crazy happens. Yeah, surprised by the lap times, to be honest.
Yes, that is interesting, isn't it? 58.709 fastest lap so far. To be fair, that's only about 4/10 away from a race lap record, and that was set by Marvin Kirkoff for a pro driver in 2022. Morgan Tilbrook then, maybe he's cooled the tyres off for a lap because this effort is looking really rapid indeed. In fact, it could trouble 2nd fastest. He's gone outright fastest in Sector 3, and Morgan Tilbrook goes across the line to 2nd place, and only a 10th slower than Petrobelli. Very impressive, James, on the 5th lap on those tyres.
It is purple Sector 3 and purple Sector 4, so really strong in the second half of the lap there. So maybe we saw this at Donington. The McLaren does take a little bit longer to fire up the tyres, but in a race that should suit it over those longer stints. And I definitely favour this car as one of the favourites for tomorrow because they've got no compensation pit stop penalty as they finish 4th at round 1. No ballast, so they're definitely a strong candidate for tomorrow. And
Morgan Tilbrook's teammate is Marvin Kirkoff, the current lap record holder, at least race lap record holder here at Silverstone. So Tilbrook, former race winner in the championship as well. One of the quickest AMs in the British GT Championship these days. I think that's widely agreed upon, but he's not the fastest in this session. Giacomo Petrobelli's 1:58.7 still stands at the top. What's Rob Collard up to? Personal best in the 2nd sector. The rest of the lap is okay. Well, no, Sector 3, look, he's dropped quite a chunk of time, over a second, so I doubt this will be an improvement for car number 1, and no, it's a 59.9. Only a 10th away from his previous best, but that will keep him in 7th position for the time being. We've had almost everybody across the line. Those who haven't seen the checkered flag are no longer improving, so it looks likely that this car will be fastest in Q1. Giacomo Petrobelli has kept up his end of the bargain. Now it's over to his pro driver to do the business in Q2. Luckily, James, his pro driver knows a thing or two about how to go quickly in British GT.
Yeah, what's he won, like 19 races? That's that's quite a lot. But yeah, just back on Rob Collard, I spoke to him before the quali session, and his injury that stopped him racing at round 1, I think, is still definitely playing a part. He said there's a lot of ring rust. He doesn't feel that comfortable in the car yet. He feels a bit nauseous. So I think, you know, that does definitely play a factor when you go into a qualifying session. You go from 0 to 100. You're right on the limit of what this GT3 car can do. So yeah, just still a good time though. 59.8.
Yeah, absolutely, and they can race from there. It's a long race tomorrow, though. You would wonder how that injury perhaps is going to affect him. Now, only 10th quickest was this car, number 42, Charles Dawson, 2Cs Motorsport. This car won a few weeks ago at Donington Park in fairly dominant fashion. Only 10th in qualifying. They are carrying, though, some extra weight in that car. We'll perhaps cover that story in Q2. Maybe go some way towards explaining why they're down at the back of the top 10. At the front, though, Giacomo Petrobelli, Blackthorn fastest overall, and therefore within the Pro-Am element of the session. And in the silver AMs, as you saw, it was the number 74 car quickest. It was Petrobelli from Tilbrook by a 10th of a second. Kevin Say, the best of the Mercedes, in third. Alex Martin fourth. Darren Leung fifth. And Andrew Gilbert in sixth. 6 different manufacturers represented in the top 6 positions. Then the reigning champ Rob Collard ahead of Marc Smith, Simon Orange and Charles Dawson, as we said, winners last time, all the way down in 10th position. Pro-Am then headed by Petrobelli, Silver Am by Gilbert. The next best silver graded driver all the way down in 12th position. That was Chen Chong Ip in the number 86 machine, 12th place. Right. Back down to the pit lane then whilst we prepare for Q2. And one legend of the motorsport broadcasting industry, Bryn Lucas, is meeting up with another.
Well, you're after a free pint, are you, Andy? Look, over my shoulder, there's Johnny Adams just getting in the car now. I am delighted to have Jenny Gow here. Jenny, familiar stomping ground for you, but crass of me, I know to ask, but why are you here? Lovely though it is.
Well, it's lovely to be back. Let me start off by saying that Silverstone feels like my second home. I'm actually here for a charity, Young Epilepsy. They're doing something called Purple Sectors, which is a sim racing series at the end of this year. And we can't say too much, but there's a special announcement happening very soon. And I'm here representing them.
Which is fantastic. I'd say it's amazing to see you here. I know you've had health struggles over the time, but you're back and you're off to Miami next week.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm back with Formula One with the BBC. It's been a long journey. I had a stroke 2 years ago, for those who might not know. Lost my speech, so obviously as a broadcaster, that's not great. But luckily I've worked really hard and I'm now back in pit lanes. And I love it. I like that whole feeling of being back in a pit lane, especially here at Silverstone, is amazing. And Miami, well, it might be a bit hotter, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Catching up with old friends here and there as well must be lovely.
Yeah, it's so nice. I don't know if you haven't been to British GT before, an event like this. Come down, see everyone. It's such an open paddock. You can meet the drivers, you can see what's going on. And yeah, it's a real buzz to be back here and a real special treat for me.
It's more than a treat for us. It's amazing to see you here. And as Jenny says, get yourself to a British GT round. If Jenny says, do it. Back to you, Andy.
Well, yes, if I wasn't already here, I'd feel compelled to jump in my car and head down to Silverstone after hearing that. Why wouldn't you want to be here, though, tomorrow? Because it's going to be one heck of a show, that is for sure. Right, Q2 then, the pro drivers bolted into the GT3 cars now. They've got another 10 minutes to show us what they do and what they make a living for, racing all around the world, most of these drivers. If you are familiar with GT racing, you'll be familiar with a lot of these names, and a few interesting stories then coming out of that first session. We covered a lot of what was going on at the top end of the field, but James was just chatting to me off air and sort of reiterating the point that the car that won in GT3 a few weeks ago at Donington, that number 42 Mercedes, it's carrying those extra 30 kilos. That's sort of because that driver combo were a lot quicker than was expected for drivers of the relevant relative grades that they are. They've stuck 30 kilos in the car to try and balance their performance against everybody else this weekend. I don't think we expected them, though, to be that far off the pace, James.
That's it. I think, 30 kilos, from speaking to other pros around here, around this track, it's worth around 0.4, maybe half a second. So they were 1.2 seconds off P1. So, that deficit is definitely not all down to the weight, but they will say, that's an unfair disadvantage they've now been given after doing such a good job at round one. It's got to be said, they both really outperformed what everyone expected. So, yeah, but let's see what Jewiss can do in this session.
Luke Garlick here now aboard the NSX, one of the real fan favourite cars on the grid is the number 86. This car was in the gravel in the pre-qualifying session earlier on this afternoon. Didn't do any damage, but will have limited their running ever so slightly. Luke Garlick only in his 4th season of car racing, and that's why he's a silver-graded driver, not an out-and-out pro, but he's a driver, I think, who is well on his way to becoming gold-graded one day. And he'll be one to watch in this second part of qualifying, as will Sven Muller in the Team Parker Racing Porsche. Anytime you plug this German into a Porsche, it goes quickly, James.
It does, yeah. I was speaking to some people in the paddock earlier, and they say when the Porsche is in the window, it's the nicest GT3 car to drive. But it's got such a narrow window that a lot of the time it's a bit of a handful. So, but you know, Sven knows that more than anyone, right? So.
He does indeed, and he's already had a successful start to his 2025 season as well. Second at the moment in GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup after the season opener at Paul Ricard a week or 2 weeks maybe ago now, that was down in France. So Sven Muller, one to watch, I suspect. Outlaps being completed by most drivers. Fran Rueda here, one of the Ferraris, the Kessel Racing example, number 74, makes his way out onto the Hangar Straight. Fran Rueda, who, like many of these pro drivers, started off in single-seaters before realising there was perhaps a more lucrative career to be found in GT racing. And he's making, I think, his third appearance in British GT, his second at the Silverstone 500. Right, who's going quickly? Sector 1 at the moment belongs to Marvin Kirkoff. You can see that at the bottom of your screen, as does Sector 2. So Kirkoff, the race lap record holder here at Silverstone, is gunning for another quick lap here in qualifying. We're following the number 3 machine of Callum McLeod through to the end of the lap. And Callum McLeod, 37-year-old, long-time teammate of Ian Loggy, former champion at Team Parker Racing, in a McLaren now for 2025. Will come across the line. Marcus Clutton at the moment at the top of the times, and that does not change. McLeod slots into third, with Plowman in the Paddock Motorsport McLaren in second. So the McLarens, again, early doors appearing at the front of the field, but I suspect, James, that this will change before too much longer.
McLeod was quickest in pre-quali, so we know the McLaren round here is quick, and none of them have any success ballast from Donington because there wasn't a McLaren on the podium. So, interestingly, looking at the data here, the Honda is the quickest through the speed trap. So, quick on the straights, probably lacking a bit in the corners. But yeah, 56.5 from Kirkoff. He's just done the quali lap record right there. Wow.
Wow. Well,
wow.
You weren't convinced we were going to see that in qualified today, but Marvin Kirkoff has dipped into the 56.5s. The times, by the way, on your screen are the combined times. This is the provisional grid as it stands, but only half of the field have now completed 2 laps. So it doesn't really change too much the picture at the front, does it? Number 77 fastest in the session, and number 77 at the moment on provisional pole. But is that about to change, though? We saw Kevin Sago third fastest in his session earlier on. Maximilian Gertz now at the wheel of car number 18. Purple first sector, James.
Yeah. Sorry, I got a bit excited there, but just seeing Marv, he now holds the quali and the race lap record. Yeah. That's a pretty big flex, isn't it? But yeah, the Mercedes on a good lap here, though, Gertz, and I'm sure if he has a strong sector 3 here, he'll be right up there.
Purple first sector, obviously personal best in sectors 2 and 3 because it's his first lap. We wait to see how this compares to that 56.5 set by Marvin Kirkoff. Off the final corner comes the Mercedes AMG. Flat out, easy flat out in a GT3 car through Woodcote Corner. To the timing line he goes. And it is second fastest. It's 4/10 off Kirkover, but on combined, of course, that is second fastest as well, actually, as it happens, just ahead of that number 7 Aston Martin. Now remember, car 7, James, was fastest in the first part of qualifying, but at the moment is third fastest in this specific session in the hands of Johnny Adams. So actually, Johnny needs to find a bit more pace.
On aggregate, yeah, they're 7/10 off P1, which is a lot of time to find from one driver in one session. But what's impressive is seeing all these really quick lap times, but I've barely seen any track limits, and we saw so many in the session before, so we know it's easy to get a track limit around here. But yeah, everyone driving really well and within the limits.
Marvin Kirkoff, would you believe, is going quicker again now in the third sector, although the other sectors weren't an improvement, so he doesn't move the goalposts, so to speak. Johnny Adam, personal best in the second sector. First sector was a little bit off. It was a 35.591 in sector 1. That's nearly 4/10 slower than the absolute best in the session. What's his third sector going to be like? If it's green, that means that he's improving at least on his current time. It's not, it's yellow, so Johnny Adam I don't think is going to set the world alight on this particular lap, and quite possibly has now had the best of the Pirelli tyres underneath him. He will round Luffield Corner though and head for the line. Joint most race wins in British GT. Johnny Adam at 19, that's overall and within the GT3 class. He heads across the line and the lap time is a 57.474, so only a 10th off his best, pretty consistent, but no quicker.
That's right, yeah, and seeing the number 42 car a second off P1, it's just crazy to see how so strong they were at Donington in round 1. And yes, they've got the extra 30 kilos, but still, that Mercedes is not working as well around here as it was at Donington. And you've got to remember as well, the number 42 car was quicker than the number 18.
Yeah.
This one, the other one, driven by Goetze. So they definitely had a sweet spot in that Mercedes, but they don't seem to have it around here.
They don't, do they? This, I think, is going to be an improvement for Kiern Jewiss, former single-seater star himself, recent GT convert. He is 7th quickest in this session at the moment, goes up to 6th in the session. We'll have to wait a moment to see what that means for the combined times. There we go, as if by magic. And they are 7th place, so they were 10th. They're now 7th on combined time, so a slight improvement there for Kiern Jewiss, but they'll certainly be looking to try and unlock more pace in the race tomorrow. Matt Griffin, bit of a legend of the British GT Championship himself as well. The Spirit of Race Ferrari rounds the right-hander at Luffield. They are 12th at the moment on combined times, but Matt improving in the first 2 sectors, James.
Yeah, who said it? Sebastian Vettel. Everyone's a Ferrari fan or something like that. So it's good to see Ferraris on the grid. And how many have we got? We've got 2 or 3 of them. So yeah, they're looking okay, but I suppose it's probably a bit much to ask. You know, they're going to be the quickest car in their sort of debut for a few years back in British GT.
Matt Griffin, a class champion in British GT back in 2003. That was, deep breath Andy, 22 years ago that Matt Griffin was winning a class championship, the GTC class as it was then. That is not the fastest Ferrari. Fran Rueda's number 74 car at the moment will be lining up the furthest up the grid, the car that Andrew Gilbert piloted in session 1. Right, 4th on combined times is car number 78, but that might be about to change. Patrick Kujala is going quicker than he has been so far. 2 personal best sectors, James.
5 cars, P4 to P9 on aggregate are within a 10th.
Wow.
So if anyone finds a slight improvement, they're going to jump from P9, P8, all the way maybe into the top 3. So super close in the midfield.
Kujala comes across the line. It wasn't an improvement in the end. He's at the front of that sort of 4th place battle. But yeah, well spotted, James. That is very, very close. Are any of those drivers improving? Well, Dan Harper, number 91, is not. Marcus Clutton, number 67, also is not. And Kiern Jewiss, what's he doing on his latest efforts? No, personal best in the speed trap, but not in any of the sectors. So it might be relatively unlikely to change. Harper has pitted, so the 91 BMW is going to go no quicker. 77 very slowly tours its way around. Now, this is Marvin Kirkoff. I don't think this is an issue. I think he's just bailed from the session. His last lap, in fairness, was quite slow. Bit surprised that he's still circulating, doing his best to stay out of everyone's way. The last thing he'd want to do here, James, is to get in somebody's way who is on a flying lap and undo all of the hard work he's done so far. Yeah,
incur a penalty, but he's got his indicator on, showing the cars behind, just pass on the left. But that is some lap. I mean, 4 tenths to P2 in a pro session. Like, anyone that drives a simulator, go and try and find 4 tenths. It's really hard. And then he's got 7 tenths on P3. That is that's a crazy lap.
And on combined times, they will have provisional pole by nearly 7 tenths of a second. And that's the interesting thing about this sort of combined time format, James, that I really like, because British GT is all about both drivers executing at their highest level. And that is exactly what we saw in the qualifying session as well. Well, watching on with interest, and I'm sure quite a bit of pride, was Marvin Kirkoff's AM teammate Morgan Tilbrook, who in fairness did his job right in session 1 as well. He's down in the pit lane now with Bryn.
Yeah, we're nervously looking on, but Morgan, that was a fantastic lap for you. I think a 10th up, or a 10th down, in fact, and in 2nd place. But your teammate has come out and he's now got the fastest lap in the race form and the fastest lap in qualifying for lap records. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, I mean, he had lap record before, so he's just beating his own lap record. Yeah, Marvin's, he's a platinum driver. He's been fantastic to drive with and teaching me a lot, and I'm really pleased with the job he's done. But ultimately, the team also put together an amazing car, so it's felt good all weekend.
What have you learned over the last few weeks and maybe days out at circuits from Marvin?
I've learned quite a lot, actually. That was the first qualifying session I did where I taped up all the deltas, so I couldn't see the times, just driving by feel, which was quite daunting to do, but I'm pleased I did it and delivered a decent result. So yeah, he's taught me to, I think, be a bit smoother in my driving, be a bit calmer, which is really important. He's super cool and chilled out. So yeah, he's good to have around. But the team, to be fair, Optimum have, they've come around me and they've helped me as well.
You've got a perfect starting place tomorrow, so well done, and we'll see you tomorrow. Well done.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thanks, Bryn. Well, a very relaxed Morgan Tilbrook then. Looks as though he'll be starting from pole position tomorrow afternoon. Optimum Optimum Motorsports on provisional pole for the Silverstone 500 in GT3. The silver and pole position looks to be going to the number 74 Kessel Racing Ferrari after a solid effort for both Andrew Gilbert and pro driver Fran Rueda. So it's the 77 Optimum Motorsport McLaren on pole, 2Cs Motorsports Mercedes second, Blackthorn's Aston Martin third, Barwell's Lamborghini fourth, and Paradigm Motorsports BMW makes it 5 makes of car in the top 5 positions. Then it's the Orange Racing by JMH McLaren ahead of the second 2Cs car, championship leaders after their win last time at Donington are 7th. The returning champion Rob Collard with Hugo Cook is 8th ahead of the top silver AM car Kessel Racing in 9th, and Paddock Motorsports Mark Smith and Martin Plowman complete the top 10. Then the second of the Ferraris, the Spirit of Race example ahead of Optimum Motorsports Mike Price and Callum McLeod. Beach Dean were down in 13th, didn't see much of them in that session, but they'll be starting mid-grid ahead of Team ABBA Racing, Sam and Richard Neary ahead of Team Parker, Stella, Bridger, Century, Blackthorn and Greystone GT. So that is our provisional pole-sitting car in GT3. Marvin Kirkoff underneath the existing qualifying lap record. He already holds the race lap record, and he'll be hoping that he can maybe even improve upon that tomorrow and deliver a race victory in British GT's biggest race to Optimum Motorsport. He and Morgan Tilbrook consistent and, more importantly, consistently quick in qualifying. Will that be the case over 3 hours tomorrow afternoon? So, GT3 portion of qualifying is completed, but do not go anywhere just yet, because we've still got the matter of deciding the GT4 pole position, as those cars are now making their way out onto the circuit, and GT4, very different looking cars, well, slightly different looking cars, but performance-wise you'll notice quite a bit of difference in performance. No less competitive though, GT4. In fact, in recent years we've seen even more variety of car at the top end of the GT4 field. And whilst these lap times won't be quite as quick as the GT3s, James, I expect this is going to be just as intriguing a pair of qualifying sessions. Difficult to tell from the practice sessions who the favourites are going to be, but a lot of people saying that the Lotus cars might be the ones to beat.
That's it, and they are about 10, 11 seconds a lap slower than the GT3s, but just seeing that number 90 McLaren, that's definitely going to be a contender, but the Lotus are quick round here. In fact, the quali lap record is held by Gordy Much in the Lotus from last year, 2:08.7. So, yeah, slightly slower, but don't get me wrong, if you've never driven a race car before, you drive one of these, you'll know about it.
Yes, most definitely. These things are still proper bits of kit, that's for sure. Less aerodynamics, less power as well, but that means, well, what does that mean, James? You're the professional racing driver out of the two of us. It's easy to say, well, they're less powerful, they've got less grip, but how different do they feel when you're actually out on track?
More like a road car, so I suppose the softer the car you're driving, and these will be softer than a GT3, you have to be more sensitive with your inputs, you know, more delicate on the brake, more delicate coming on power, more smooth with the steering, because there's more weight transfer, so you can't just throw the car around. In a GT3 with a bit more downforce, you can do that a bit more, then you get to prototypes and stuff like that, and you can really be aggressive behind the wheel. So smooth is fast, basically.
Sounds easy. It is not, as we know. It is a very, very tough thing to do, to hook together a perfect lap around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in a car that is moving around quite a bit underneath you. Well, you mentioned just now, James, the Optimum Motorsport McLaren number 90. Mark Warren and Jack Brown won at Donington Park last time out. Then it was the Century Motorsport BMW second. This car finished in 3rd place, though. Ed McDermott and Seb Morris in the Mercedes. They are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And this, traditionally, in either GT3 or GT4, has been a pretty good track for the Mercedes AMGs.
Yeah, and I think just talking to people in the paddock, like, I think apart from the Lotus and the McLarens in GT4, everyone's a bit miffed. They want a bit more performance from their cars. So the Mercedes, the McLaren, the Mercedes, the BMW, these sorts of cars, they want to start getting results. And I think Donington was scary, the pace difference between the Lotus and the McLaren versus everything else. But it could be completely different here at Silverstone.
And you've got the 3 hours, you've got the 3 pit stops, all the strategic calls that you can make. It's not necessarily going to be the fastest cars that win the race tomorrow in either GT3 or GT4. We saw that last year, indeed. Safety cars, perhaps changeable weather. So it's important, isn't it, that you don't get down on yourself. We often hear teams and drivers saying, well, you know, our car needs to be quicker, BOP this, whatever. But actually, when you get into the race, you've got to have a positive attitude, because you can make things happen without having the raw pace.
It's a long championship. It's not about raw pace, as you say. There's so many things that can go wrong in a race. It's about keeping your nose clean, just getting the most out of your package every single weekend is all you can do as a driver. So all the other energy you put into complaining about BOP and stuff, it is wasted energy in a way. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's my view on it anyway.
Won't stop them probably, but hey, that's what being a racing driver is all about. Right then, who's going quickly? Well, sort of predicted it, didn't we, that the Lotus would be one to beat. Mahiki Racing's 84 car setting the pace in the first two sectors right now. It is Josh Miller who is taking the first session in this one. Worth noting that we have in GT4 something that we don't have in GT3, which is the Silver Cup, the all-silver graded drivers. They will have extra time that they have to serve in the pit lane in the race tomorrow. We'll cover that at the relevant time. But for now, what does that mean? Well, it means that in this session, you've got silver drivers out there against bronze-graded drivers who in theory aren't quite as quick as them. But then in that second session, when the pros are out there, the silver-graded drivers in the past might well have been at a bit of a disadvantage. But a slight tweak to the regulations this weekend. Those silver cars not carrying the compensation weight, the ballast that they normally have to in qualifying, that will only be applied for the race tomorrow. 84 then sets the early benchmark, James, 207.981. That's a respectable time.
And it's a silver lineup, as we would suspect in this session. A silver should really it should be really quickest. And, you know, in the race, it will hurt them. 12 seconds at every stop to bring those silvers back into play with the Pro-Ams. Worth saying as well, you don't have a silver-silver combination in GT3, so it is only in GT4 that there is that driver combo. But, yeah, 207.9, really strong first lap.
Well, the qualifying lap record, if the document I've got in front of me is right, it was a 2-minute 8.7 set by Mahiki Racing's Lotus in the hands of Gordy Much last year. So we're 0.8 of a second underneath that already.
Yeah, we've underplayed that, haven't we? That's a really strong lap.
Just a bit. 1.4 seconds quicker than anyone else has managed. And they've pretty much all now done a flying lap. In fact, as Orton comes across the line in the number 41 Porsche, that does mean all 12 cars have set a time. And this one is 1.4 seconds quicker than the rest. The rest is led by the number 17 at the moment. That is the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, not this Optimum Motorsport McLaren, interestingly, but the teammate car, Harry George and Luca Hopkinson. It's Harry George who set the time. Ravi Ramid is third for Century. Fourth then for Marc Warren, who along with Jack Brown won at Donington last time out. This is on board now with Warren. Fourth place is pretty decent, James. 2.1 seconds off the pace, though, that he'll be less pleased with.
That lap doesn't even look real. I mean, you've got to consider as well, this is the first GT4 session, so they'll have slightly more fuel than the second session. The track should continue to rubber up and get even faster. So to break the track record by 0.8 on his first lap in the first session, that is crazy.
And going quicker again, at least in Sector 2 on his next lap is Miller, so that Mahiki Racing Lotus really is flying. In fact, that is still, I think, underselling, and I don't think there's a word that quite describes how rapid that car is compared to the rest of the field. Warren, though, to his credit, is improving on his previous best, personal best in Sector 2. Chris Solkel's just leapt up into third position. That's the number 14 Century Motorsport BMW that he shares with Brandon Templeton. Warren pitches the car into the left-hander at Brooklands. This looks like a good lap that he's putting together, in fairness. And the race winner, one of the race winners from Donington Park last time out, might be about to move up the order.
Yeah, looks neat and tidy through Brooklands and Luffield. Shortest run to the line. Try and use all the curve here just to save you a few hundredths. But it looked a little bit wiggly coming out of Luffield, but there we watch that, 209.6, still a long way off P1.
It is at least now back into the top 3, though, and again, with the championship perspective in mind, if they can be qualifying and then maybe finishing in and around the top 3 in every race, then that should be good enough to keep them in contention for the title when we get to Donington again at the end of the season. The McLaren then continues on its way. Now, we mentioned in GT3 that the tyres, generally speaking, after the second flying lap were perhaps past their best. These cars with less downforce may be asking a little bit less of the tyres. Is there a slightly wider window now for the drivers to get a time in?
Well, it is the same tyre, so I would say probably not. The preparation might be slightly different. I'm not too sure. I've not driven the GT4s on this Pirelli, but oh, that was a big slide.
Ravi Ramid.
Impressive to watch.
He clipped the curb there, didn't he, through the right-hand part, the first right-hand part of Club, and unsettled the car, rather. But Ravi Ramid, who learnt his craft in Ginetta one-make racing, moving up into the British GT Championship a couple of seasons ago now, and the number 71 Century Motorsport BMW, 4th place at the moment. Only 65 thousandths of a second away from third, but that car is on the ragged edge.
Yeah, I mean, his tyres would have been slightly overheated from that little slide in Club, but it looks like the rear's all over the place, unless he's maybe pushing a little bit too hard. It's hard to say from just this sort of chase cam angle or the TV cameras, but
yes, he also went quite a bit beyond track limits. I'm not convinced he gained any advantage from it, but it was out of shape through the left, wasn't it, James, before he even got onto the brakes?
yeah, he sort of came on the brakes whilst turning, which would lead to a moment like that. But yeah, run wide on the exit, and definitely that lap won't be allowed. I don't think track limits on that one.
I doubt it will be his best anyway, because that is not the fastest line through Village, even I can tell you that. But Ravi Ramid, who always is an exciting driver to watch, taking that excitement to a whole other level. He will cross the line with about 40 seconds to go, so time for one more lap if he wants it. But because it's such a long lap here, James, if he does do another whole lap to completion, he's then got to do an in-lap back to the pit lane, and that can sometimes eat into the second session. So at what point do you think the team need to get on the radio to certain drivers and say, maybe it's time you pit and prepare for session 2?
Hard to say. I think it's one of those, if you're improving, let the lap continue. If not, then save the car and box and get ready for the second session. But, you know, they've still got time. 10 minutes is a lot of time, but when you've got a track this long, as you say, it does go quickly.
Harry George, by the way, personal best in all 3 sectors so far. It will likely be an improved lap time for the car that currently is second in the times, and it is an improved lap time. It's a 209.377. That's still 1.4 seconds off the fastest time we've seen in the session so far. But you never know what session 2 might have in store for us. They might be able to bridge the gap slightly to the 84 car, which is already in the pit lane. So to our point that we were just making, they know that they've done the job in session 1. They probably could have boxed after the first lap of the session, and they're already now getting that driver change done for the second part of the qualifying session. Josh Miller then gets out of car 84. Aiden Neate will get into it, and Aiden Neate, another star driver. He was pretty rapid at Donington Park last time out. I don't anticipate him being 1.4 seconds slower than anybody else in this next session, so really just needs to go out there and just produce a decent lap, and that should be enough.
It's a great position to be in, isn't it? You're 1.4 seconds up. You can just come in, save the car for the race, you know, focus on the second session, do a half-decent lap. You're guaranteed to pretty much be on P1 overall, unless there's some sort of technical issue or something. And then you can really turn your eyes to the race, and they'll hopefully be starting from pole with that lap, and they can kick on from there. They
were 5th at Donington last time out, so they've scored some solid points at the start of the season. And they'll be looking to very much score a few more points tomorrow, maybe even maximum points for a race win. Lap times still coming in, meanwhile. This is Marc Warren, 3rd quickest at the moment in the number 90 car, which won at Donington in round number 1. And a couple of personal best sectors on this lap as well. Now, Warren's just under a quarter of a second slower than Harry George in second place. So if he really nails this final sector, he might be able to leap onto the provisional front row of the grid. Let's see what the lap time is. It is a 209.377 to beat. He does a 209.454, 77 thousandths of a second slower than Harry George, who, to his credit, put his personal best lap in on his previous effort as well. Without that, Warren might well have been able to move up into second place, but he will return that car to the pit lane. Okay, didn't improve his position, but that improvement in time, James, because it's a combined session, that could prove really pivotal at the end of session 2.
Looking good in Pro-Am as well. They're P1 in class, and you've got to remember that the Silvers tomorrow will have that pit stop deficit every single time they go into the box. So it's looking good for the 90, to be honest.
41 comes around the final corner, the Rob Boston Racing prepared car, and that car with Jamie Orton at the wheel will hand over to former Ginetta and British Touring Car racer Will Burns for the second part of qualifying. But it is Lotus on top. It is a pair of silver entries at the top of the times in the first part of GT4 qualifying. Mahiki Racing, fastest of the Silver Cup entrants, but fastest overall as well in GT4. Optimum Motorsports, as James very nicely made the point, 3rd quickest, but still best of the Pro-Ams, the number 90 machine. And Team Parker Racing, who were on the podium at Donington last time out, were the quickest in their class as well. So, Miller for Mahiki Racing, new qualifying lap record for him, a 207.981, the only driver to get remotely near the 207s in that session, with Harry George for Optimum Motorsport, the best of the McLarens in second. The Donington winners were 3rd. Marc Warren will hand that over now, though, to Jack Brown to try and do something about moving up the order. Then Century Motorsports, 2 BMWs complete the top 5. Mahiki's 2nd Lotus was 6th quickest, ahead of Ed McDermott in the Team Parker Racing Mercedes, and Stephen Lake in the 2nd Mahiki Lotus. then Team Parker Racing and Rob Boston Racing complete the top 10. So one more qualifying session to come then here from Silverstone, but there's only one man we want to hear from. That sadly is not Bryn Lucas, but Bryn is the one who's able to catch up with our new lap record holder.
Very much the warm-up act, aren't I? Look, that was an absolutely sensational lap, 1.4 seconds up the road from George. That is incredible.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy for the whole team, especially after a tough Donington where we really showed our pace and what we were capable of. But unfortunately, due to circumstances outside our control, we couldn't quite get that overall. So I think we're putting ourselves in a pretty solid position for race day tomorrow.
Fifth at Donington puts you in a very, very good position. You are a silver pairing, which means every single pit stop you've got an extra 12 seconds sitting in the car. But the pace you're showing does put you straight at the top end if we look at numbers.
It does, but ultimately we've got to serve that 12 seconds 3 times, and we're up against some very strong Pro-Am pairings. So it's going to be very tough, especially if the safety cars don't favour us this weekend.
What's the team been working on since the last round then? Anything in particular?
Obviously in terms of coordination and strategy, and then fine-tuning setup as well. But I think we're in a pretty good place right now.
Very much so. Let's see what your teammate can do, but well done.
Thank you very much.
Well, Josh Miller then reasonably happy with that, but doing a very good job of underplaying, I think. Just what an amazing job he just did. I mean, it's not a certainty that that car will be starting from pole position. It does look likely they'll be starting from pole, it must be said, but his thoughts very much on tomorrow's race and all of the things that they still have to do right just to put themselves in a position to fight for the victory tomorrow. Seems strange to say that given how quick they are in qualifying, but that is not even close to half the job done.
Very level-headed reaction, wasn't it? Which I think is the best way to be. You know, don't go too high, don't go too low. Very quick lap time, regardless. And I think they are quids in for pole. And yeah, this session in theory should get a bit quicker. The track's got more rubber on the track, should have slightly more grip, and the car should have slightly less fuel in the car as well. So we should see, in theory, another track record. But maybe that lap was just an absolute wonder lap.
Well, we shall see then, won't we, in this final part of qualifying. There's the 88 Mahiki Racing Lotus heading out onto the circuit. Joe Wheeler now at the wheel of that one. And well, the good thing about the GT4 part of the session, with only 12 cars out on circuit and such a long circuit for them to run on, traffic shouldn't really be much of an issue. Mahiki cars have gone out together, but you'd imagine, James, they will separate themselves before you go onto that flying lap, because as much as the slipstream can help you a little bit round here, you want that clean air for a really quick lap, don't you?
You do, yeah. The dirty air in the GT4 isn't as prominent, so it's not as big an issue if you're right behind someone. The tow can be useful, and I suppose they could use that to their advantage. Say if the guy ahead's already done a lap he's happy with and they don't really want to improve it, they can use that car to give the other car a tow and give them a little bit more lap time. But I'm sure they'll spread out, as you say, 2 or 3 second gap between the cars, and so they can have some clean laps.
Drivers weaving around to get some heat into the tyre. It is Aiden Neate, who I think is the first driver out on track. I mean, they had a good third of that previous session to prepare themselves for this, and actually stepping out of the way there of the teammate car. That's the number 69 machine to his inside. And Jack Mitchell, who we've seen racing in the GT3 category in British GT over the years, will assume his position at the front of the train. Aiden Neate then, whose father raced in the British Touring Car Championship and was a GT star back in the 2000s as well, Andy Neate, will be watching on, I'm sure, with a little bit of apprehension, but a lot of pride that his son is one of the leading lights now in the British GT4 Championship. Can they complete the job that they started in the first session and put car 84 on pole position? Through Luffield corner then comes Jack Mitchell, squares off the exit, gets on the power and accelerates through Woodcote corner to start a qualifying lap. And the 69 car, which at the moment is down in 8th position, that's the Mahiki car with all the work to do, James.
Yeah, it'd be great to get an onboard just of this great track in the GT4, but just looking at the lap times, we've seen 2 qualifying track records today. If I'm looking at the temps, 15, 16 degrees, which is sort of medium temps, explains why we're seeing such quick times. It's not too hot, not too cold. The tyres are probably in the perfect working window. And some drivers like Marvin and obviously the Lotus in the last session have just put laps together which have been on the limit, and we've seen the track records.
We have indeed, yeah. It's that nice sweet spot, isn't it? Where, as you said, it's not too hot, it's not too cold. Happy hour, exactly, yes. And, you know, we think of a hot racetrack being a quick racetrack, and it is to a point, but then you can very easily step over that, and it starts to lose grip. Aiden Neate then through Stowe corner. in the 84 machine, and he's 4/10 slower than Jack Mitchell, his teammate, at the moment. Now, this is only a first effort, but if, hypothetically, he was to lose 4/10 in every sector, pole position suddenly doesn't look all that secure. I'm sure Neate can go quicker than this, and probably will as he improves through the session. That's one thing we did see from the first session, James. They've got a few goes at this before the tyres have gone past their best.
They do. I feel sorry for Neate because he's got that delta on his dash of the 207.9, so it's going to be really hard to get that in a negative space, if you see what I mean. But it was interesting actually listening to Tilbrook talking about the delta. It's a good tactic if you're in your own head as a driver and you're chasing the lap time too much, resulting in overdriving, which weirdly makes you slower. Taping over the dash, just to, psychologically, I can see why that would work, especially for an AM. You know, just focus on how it feels, do the right things fundamentally, the lap time will fall into place.
Yes, good point. You'll know this is a sim racer where you're sort of bombarded with data as you're driving around the track. It can be a little bit overwhelming at times. There is less of that data when you're doing it for real, but the dashboards of these modern-day GT cars, they do light up like a Christmas tree, and it can be a little bit distracting. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting to hear from Morgan Tilbrook as well. Right then, who is going to set the early benchmark time in Q2, and what will it mean for the combined times? That's what we're showing on the timing tower at the moment. You'll see a lot of shifting of that order as drivers do now start to put a lap in. Until everyone's done a lap, we won't fully understand what the order's going to be. It is Aiden Neate who ends that lap in the end, a 10th quicker than his teammate Jack Mitchell. So Mitchell started it better. Aiden perhaps still bringing the tyres in, put in a purple third sector, fastest of anybody else. Charlie Robertson in the Century Motorsport BMW goes to the top of the times in this session. That is just under 2/10 quicker than Aiden Neate. It is, about 3/10 quicker than Jack Mitchell. Because of the advantage the 84 car had already on combined times, that's not going to be enough at the moment for pole position for the Century BMW. What can Jack Brown do? Well, he is coming towards the end of his first flying lap of the session. Not setting any outright fastest sector times so far, but the McLaren changes direction well. This final sector might well allow him to find a bit more time.
You can see how the car just dived as soon as he hit the brakes, just showing you how soft these GT4 cars really are. So nice smooth steering inputs there, nice straight wheel on the exit, and that looked neat and tidy, but we didn't get a chance to see the car going over the line. But what time is he going to do? It's going to be a 2:07. Ooh, almost.
2:08.2 in the end, second fastest in the session at the moment for the race-winning car from Donington last time on combined times. That also puts them in second place. That's the order that we're showing on the timing tower now, so it would still be 84 Lotus from 90 McLaren from 71 BMW now, but there have been some good lap times coming in from others further back. Seb Morris actually looked like he was on a good lap in the Team Parker Racing BMW, and then it got away from him in the second half. He's towards the end of a second flying lap now. Heads the number 69 of Jack Mitchell, and he is going quicker. Jack Mitchell then an outright fastest first sector, a personal best in sector 2. He's 4th quickest in the session, 5th on combined times, but needs quite a chunk of time, doesn't he, to actually improve onto that second row?
That's right, 1.4 seconds combined time gap between P1 and P2 is crazy, but a lot of the times now you can see like 208.1, 208.2, they're all quite close to that lap time we saw in the first session. So I think a lot of drivers in the first session may be under-delivering a little bit because there was a huge gap between P1 and P2 last time. So, but it's definitely closer in this one.
Oh, well, it's actually not a Lotus on top in this time now. It is Charlie Robertson's BMW by 11 thousandths of a second, who's just gone to the top, a 208.111. Still only good enough for third on combined times, but it is BMW fastest in this particular session. Personal best in the first sector this time round for Jack Brown. The second sector gets away from him slightly, a 26.718. Is still good though, actually. That's within a 10th or so of the absolute best in this session. And he wriggles the Optimum Motorsport McLaren through the left-hand king onto the Wellington straight. Not a car in sight, 0 distractions. And, well, realistically, 2 more corners left of this lap to try and find a bit more time.
Yeah, and still within a couple of tenths of the pace. And as you say, no traffic, no excuses. So, yeah, he's got everything he needs to deliver the lap. And I'm sure it's going to be a low 208, which is exactly where he needs to be to go P1.
Yeah, no one getting into the 207s yet in this session, but a 208.1 is still a pretty rapid lap. Had it not been for what we'd seen in session 1, we'd be getting very excited about a 208.1. Another 208.1 there for Jack Brown. 3 thousandths of a second quicker than Charlie Robertson. Within this actual session, James, the top 3 are covered by 14 thousandths of a second. That is remarkably tight. It's McLaren from BMW from Lotus, the order in the session. It is Lotus, McLaren, BMW. In the combined times, but that's a good lap for Jack Brown.
super close. Exactly what we want to see, you know. And there's still some drivers improving out there, so I think there's going to be some changing of the order. But and you can see 6 cars within 4 tenths.
Yeah.
So this is more like it. The first session was so spread out. It almost looked a bit wrong, didn't it? But
yeah, this one much more familiar to those who have followed British GT for a number of years. We know how close GT4 tends to be. Mehiki's 69 car, by the way, Jack Mitchell, improving again on this lap. Personal best 2nd sector, outright fastest 3rd sector. The Lotus will be at the line any moment now and might be able to steal that fastest time of the session away. But I don't think that's quite going to be enough to move into 4th on combined tyres. He does go to the top. He's in the 7s now, 207.965 for Jack Mitchell. 10th and a half quicker now than this car in the hands of Jack Brown, but Mitchell stays in 5th position, still over a second away from the top 4 on the grid.
yeah, 207.965 for Jack Mitchell. I can't remember what the final 2 digits were of the previous track record, but is that the new track record, or is it just shy of it?
I think it's slightly slower. I seem to remember it being a 9.5 possibly. We'll await confirmation on
you're
that.
the lead commentator and I'm not.
I could be wrong, James. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. We'll get confirmation at the end of the session, maybe. But either way, Jack Mitchell proving that he is at least capable of matching, so far, the quickest GT4 time. And in a race tomorrow where, you know, the drivers might be out in a different order, it might not necessarily be the same group of drivers on track together as we've had in qualifying, that could prove to be really important. Aiden Neate has bailed back to the pit lane. His afternoon's work is done. 4th quickest in the session, but did exactly what he needed to do there, James. He's only a 1/4 of a second off the outright fastest time in this session, more than enough to keep hold of pole position.
Did the job, exactly. I think it's worth stressing as well. Today is super interesting to see where everyone's raw pace is at, and there probably is a little bit of gamesmanship going on because no one wants to show their outright pace and get BOP'd overnight. But tomorrow in this event is where it really counts. You know, a 3-hour race, all the strategy involved, the weather's going to be mixed as well by the looks of it. Qualifying is important, but I think tomorrow it's going to all change anyway.
Not a smile on the face of either of those drivers. They've got plenty to be smiling about, though, because they are going to go into tomorrow's Silverstone 500 very much the ones to beat. Bryn Luke, as you can see there, is on hand. We'll hear from him momentarily with our Mehiki Racing drivers. And, well, didn't matter which one you put in the car, they were quick. Aiden Neate, 4th fastest within his session. The checkered flag is out, by the way, so the 10 minutes are over. If you're on a lap before that point, you're able to complete it. There are a handful of drivers doing just that, but I don't think we're going to see any real improvements. Into the pits comes Jack Mitchell. He's fastest within this portion of qualifying, and that has brought the number 69 car up the order a little bit. It was languishing in the bottom half of the table after Q1. Really solid job that from Mitchell, fastest of that group of drivers, and he's put that car into the top 5.
I've just been informed that Mitchell's time is 0.016 seconds quicker than Miller's time, so it is a new track record.
Wow, I told you I might be wrong. It was close, though, very close, within a 100th or so of a second. So very intriguing stuff after GT4 qualifying. Mehiki Racing, the team to beat. They will have provisional pole position in the GT4 class tomorrow. The second driver to head out in that car was Aiden Neate, and he catches up now with Bryn.
I'd like to say I know the position you're in, Aiden, but getting out there when you've got such a big margin, it must be easy. Or in mind, you must be thinking, I'll just sit back, and that's dangerous, right?
Yeah, I mean, it takes the pressure off when Josh does as good of a lap as he did. You know, you jump in with a margin, you don't have to go out finding the last thousand. So yeah, it was nice. I mean, just a great feeling, really. You know, so we got it at Donington as well, but had it taken away from us. So yeah, here is nice, and nice to be by that margin.
Nice for your team manager, Joe Osborne, who's watching from Kota as well.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think he was on the podium as well yesterday, so hopefully he's having a good time. But we miss him here, so hopefully he pops back round for Alton Park.
Sets it up perfectly. Well done.
Good stuff. Good to hear there from Aiden Neate and yes, Joe Osborne, who's left the commentary box to become team principal at Mehiki and now off racing in America. He's a busy boy, is Joe. It was Mehiki Racing on top on combined times. They will have pole position for the Silverstone 500's GT4 class tomorrow. In Pro-Am, Optimum Motorsports number 90. They're going to be very much a factor, I think. They were second fastest in both sessions and were quickest of the Pro-Ams. And in the Endurance Cup element, it was Team Parker Racing with the fastest time, the number 12 Mercedes AMG, which again looks pretty competitive as it was last time out. So what does that all mean for the combined grid? Mahiki racing on pole by 1.3 seconds. You don't see that very often. And both drivers going under the existing qualifying, Jack Miller under the existing qualifying record, which was then pipped in session 2. Optimum Motorsports were second on the grid, then Century's BMW, and the second Optimum McLaren in 4th place. Then Jack Mitchell, who is now the qualifying lap record holder. So it stayed within the Mahiki fold, and that car will start from 5th ahead of Century. The 2 Team Parker cars, the 3rd Mahiki Lotus, and Rob Boston Racing's Porsche, to complete the top 10 ahead of the Silverstone 500 tomorrow. So 4 qualifying sessions, each one of them packed with intrigue and some very fast laps. Qualifying lap records broken in both GT3 and GT4. No lap records, though, broken by the Donington Park winners. The 42 Mercedes will start only 7th, having dominated on raw pace at least last time out. In the first GT3 qualifying session, it was Giacomo Petrobelli fastest in the number 7 Aston Martin. Kevin Say put in a really solid lap, though, in car number 18 as well, and kept that car in contention. It was, though, the number 77 McLaren, which was rapid in both sessions. Morgan Tilbrook put in a solid effort in Q1, and Marvin Kirkoff broke the quali lap record to put that car on pole position in GT3. In GT4, the first session was all about Lotus, quite frankly. The McLarens, BMWs, they tried their best to keep up, but Mahiki Racing were flying, and the 84 car in the hands of Josh Miller was the fastest of them all. Donington winners, though, they've ended up second on the grid. Optimum Motorsports McLaren. It's Mahiki Racing's Lotus, though, that set a new lap record and have the GT4 pole position for the Silverstone 500.